What's up, everyone? So today is just going to be a video basically updating the last tier list I did pretty much from scratch, because the last one is, in my opinion, has changed a lot since then, and yeah, the last one isn't exactly very accurate anymore. So this is going to be a quick updated one on the Wukong patch, since they did a lot of the big changes, such as like making minions move faster and things like that, as well as being able to actually have some high elo gameplay and scrims and things like that, and kind of what's being played at the high level on NA East at least. Um, so I'm just gonna get into it. To start, we're gonna go Aurora. I thought she was kind of like a little low tier, but I've kind of been, my opinion's been changed a little bit. I think she is playable, and I think the minion changes have actually made her a little better because it's easier to freeze waves and better to freeze waves now due to the minion damage difference and the movement speed that they get. So I think Aurora is actually a little better than I previously gave her credit for. Belica, I believe on my last list, I think Belica was like the third worst character. I've actually changed my opinion a lot. I think she is very strong, even with the tank build being nerfed a little bit. I still think she's very strong. Her right click can easily do 12, 13, 1400 damage late game. 5, 6 items in. Very strong character now. Completely flip flopped from where I thought she was last time. Very strong. Countess, I'm pretty sure she was the worst character in the game on the previous patch. They kind of buffed her scaling a little bit. She's actually playable a little bit now in the lane. Her jungle still sucks. Wouldn't recommend playing her there, but in jungle, in mid, and in solo, you could still get some good value, and you definitely one shot now late game, especially without everybody building pendant. In mid, you can still one shot. Fanatics are still a little bit of a problem for you, but you can still kill the mid, and that's pretty much all you got to do. Decker. Okay, Decker is probably the worst support out of the three main supports, between like Narbash, Decker, and Muriel. Just not super strong in lane. Your team fight is kind of revolves around the cage. It's really all you have. Other than that, you're more of like a single target stun, in which case you're just bringing less value than Narbash or Muriel, shielding your team, something like that. You're really just kind of there for the cage, but the characters that benefit the most from the cage are not super strong right now. I'll get to them in a minute, but she's just meh. I don't think she's worse than Aurora though. I think she's probably somewhere around here because there is only 3 supports. It's very, you could potentially ban Muriel Narbash, and then Decker's the best support now. So there's definitely viability there. Belica can also be played in support, but I think it's a little troll, to be honest, unless you're against the Narbash specifically. Then it's like okay, but Decker is just, she's good, but she's a little bit worse than the other supports because the other supports are just so strong in the current meta. At least until they add some more. Feng Mao. Feng Mao is still top tier. One of the best junglers in the game. I don't think he's broken. Like, I don't think he's SS tier. I don't think he needs to be nerfed necessarily. I'd rather see the characters above him nerfed a little bit, but he is like your go-to jungler, probably your second best jungler between like him and Grux, I would say. Just very strong, very safe. You clear fast. You're good late game. You can actually go full damage on him if you go this build where you go like Spirit Fang into what's the second item? I forget what the second item is, but you go like Spirit Fang. Oh, Sword of the Hurricane. That's what it is. Short Sword of the Hurricane. You go Spirit Fang, Hurricane, and then you can go Fanatics Desert into Emergency Respirator Unit or something like that. Not Emergency Treatment. It's the one that gives you the shield, and you basically double stack shields between Fanatics and that, and you get like 1,000 health shield late game, and it's very strong, and you just one-shot people. You dash in, auto attack cancel into the E, and you can just ult, and then you're out. It's very easy to do that late game. Very strong character, just not at the top level. You're not first picking him, but you are picking him if maybe some of the other junglers are taken, or you need a good soul laner because some of the soul laners might be banned. Gadget. Okay, Gadget is not as good as people think she is. She is, to be honest, probably one of the worst mid laners. She's not bad when I say she's the worst. She's just not as good as the other ones. You don't bring as much value. You're just kind of meh. You don't have any hard CC. You just apply slows. The movement speed is nice, especially after the sprint changes. Now that you're a little slower in sprint, you get a little bit more value out of the movement speed because it does make you faster than how sprint would make you. So that's kind of nice, but you just like your ult got nerfed, your bomb got nerfed. You just get a lot worse. You're a lot less annoying in the early game, and in the late game, you do damage, but so do all the other mids. So it's not like you're really getting any extra value from her. Gideon. Okay, Gideon I think is probably the best mid right now. I might actually put him in the SS tier. I don't know how you would nerf him without making him unplayable, other than just removing the spell shield on the ultimate. The fact that you can just ult from a position where nobody else can hit you makes you incredibly strong. You're good into every matchup. You have no bad matchups. You can't be ganked. You have a great gank if you want to gank somebody. Just super strong. You can play it support too if you really want to, but it's not as good as it was on the previous patch just because you don't really rotate nearly as much as you used to, especially as a support. Grux. Grux is the premier jungler, I would say. If you're in comp, usually the way picks and bans go is one team takes, an OP pick that's up, maybe Muriel or something like that. Whatever didn't get banned, Steel maybe. And then the other team takes whatever else didn't get banned, and then they take Grux. That's usually how picks and bans go. So I just said he's just very strong, good gank, good pressure, strong in the jungle. You can build him tank, you can build him full damage like Feng Mao, super strong. CC, one of the only characters that really has a good engage. There's not a lot of good characters that have engages other than like Steel, for example. So being able to just dash Grux pull is super strong. You can play him solo lane too, although I think his solo is a little weaker than his jungle. But just overall a really good character. Just has everything in his kit that he needs. Anti-heal as well. Very good into Narbash and some of the ADCs that have lifesteal. Howitzer. Howitzer's on like the same tier as Gadget, I would say. They're just kind of, you do the same thing really. You just kind of hit people. You're a little safer than Gadget. I'd actually probably put him a little higher. Probably put him above Decker in terms of value. You burst people, but your laning phase is kind of weak because you can't clear as fast as some of the other mages because you don't hit the whole wave. You can be kind of out-traded in mid. You are strong into non-traditional mid laners, though. You're strong into hunter mids. You're strong into characters like Countess or other melee characters. But in general, you're just kind of like, you're a good pick, but you're not as good as the top picks. Actually, I'd probably put him around Bellica. I'd put him a little bit below Bellica, but he's on like the similar level where you pick them. You're going to do damage, you're going to get value, but you're just not as good as somebody like Gideon, for example. Kalari. She's better after the dash change. She's definitely better. I would probably put her somewhere around Aurora. I still think Countess is probably a little better just in general. They kind of do the same thing, although Countess plays in the lane, whereas Kalari plays a little bit more in the jungle. You are strong, but you're not as strong as some of the other characters in the game. And your jungle pressure is just worse than someone like Grux or Feng Mao. Your ganks are pretty good at lower levels, but once you get into the higher levels where people are warding, if you're against the Kalari, you just place a ward in the lane. She can't really gank you very easily without using her dash, and if she dashes, then it's hard to kill you because you just, get away with your mobility skills or CC her in some capacity and walk away. She's good, but she's not OP. She's just kind of, you don't really ever pick her in the high elos unless you're someone like Jaxi, for example, who's like a Kalari main or somebody like that. But in general, you're not super strong. You're Kalari. Everybody knows what you're going to do. You're going to do your red. You're going to spam gank. If you don't get kills early on, you're not going to be able to snowball. If you don't snowball, you're kind of just dead. Late game, you're just an alt bot. If you ult, you're just going to get blown up by whoever you're not ulting. If you ult the ADC, the mid's going to kill you. If you ult the mid, the ADC is going to kill you. That should just be how it goes. On top of the fact that you go like Mutant Poe and things like that, if you teleport in, you're going to get hit by Mutant Poe, you're not even going to get your ult off. If you don't already get CC'd by like a Decker stun or a Narbash stun or something like that. Just good, just not. Definitely a little better this patch, especially without everybody building tank in mid. So your mid lane gank is a little better, but you're still just your Kalari at the end of the day. Everybody knows what you're going to do. Chimera. Chimera is pretty bad. I don't think there's ever a situation where I would be happy to have a Chimera on my team. There's just never going to be a situation where Chimera is the last pick that you're going to take. You can play it if you want to. There's a few players at higher elo that play it like Nitro, but it's just, you don't get a ton of value. You have to build tanky to do anything, and you just don't really do a whole lot. You're not really threatening. All you have is a single target stun. You have no escape. You're going to get invaded. If I'm playing against a Chimera, I'm just going to W key him. Whatever jungler I'm playing, I'm going to W key him. If I'm mid, I'm going to try to help my jungler W key him. You just constantly get invaded, and then you're behind this Chimera, and you have no escapes. You're just going to die at any point. You're also very one-dimensional. So if you try to gank somebody, everybody knows that what you're gonna do. You're gonna jump. You're gonna maybe use your Q. You're gonna ult, or you're gonna ult and then Q, and it's not too hard to kill you. Also, getting stunned at any point pretty much cancels your regen passive, so you're kind of just playing down an ability the entire game. You're just kind of meh at the moment until they either make it so that you don't lose regen stacks off of any CC pretty much, because almost any CC in the game will last long enough to cancel your regen, or they maybe increase the base damage on some of his abilities, something like that, so that he can be more of a bruiser solo laner type character. He's just not very good. But you can play him if you really want to, but he's more of a noob stomp character, and at the higher lows you are going to get absolutely bullied in your own jungle by almost every other character except for maybe Countess. Kwong. Kwong is very strong. They made him a lot more fluid, so you don't lag as much. People have kind of figured out the most ideal combo where you auto twice, throw the sword, teleport to the sword for an instant knockup, and then you ult and you can right click at the same time. So you get a stun while they're knocked up, guaranteeing the 4th hit, and then you can auto into a dash and get a second knockup, and you basically get like 5-second CC chain, 4 or 5 seconds, where you just can't do anything and you can't return anything. And he's just very strong in that regard. He's magical, which is probably his only downside, because if you play Kwong, he's usually better in the jungle. You can play him solo, but his jungle is definitely where he's at. His ganks are very good. One of the few characters that can actually gank Gideon, because your tether will stop him from being able to portal away, which makes him pretty decent. You can also 2 out of the Gideon ult or something like that, but you really just pick it as a counter pick to Gideon, or if, Feng Mao or Grux is taken, or maybe you just don't want to play one of those two and you want another character that has some type of CC. But very good character. A little bit harder to play. Maybe I wouldn't recommend it to newer players, but if you're comfortable on him and you can get the combos down and you can learn how to, play him correctly, very strong character. Murdoch. Murdoch was kind of the best ADC for a little while. I think he's kind of dropped down now a little bit. He's just a little bit worse than a couple other ones. The Q nerf really hurt him a lot in the lane, and you don't really get as fed now off of your ultimate as you used to, because people are kind of more used to playing against it. They're not going to overstay. They're not going to greed. At the higher elos, you're just not going to get free kills with them. You are still strong. Your right click got nerfed a little bit, so you don't have so much safety by pushing people back, but that didn't really matter too much. It helps killing him sometimes, but for the most part, that space will be enough. Unless you're against somebody like Shimby or somebody that has like quick dashes where you get flashed on and then they still have their dash up. You're not really going to notice too big of a difference, but he is definitely a little worse, especially after the right click nerf. Muriel. Probably the best support in the game. Debatably the best character in the game. You should be banning or picking this character in every single game. She is just absolutely insane. Even after her shielding nerfs, she's still very, very strong. You have global presence, your right click goes across the map, you can shield people, you have a stun so you can cancel abilities. Just incredibly strong. The only weak part about Muriel is that she loses lane to Narbash. If you're against Decker, you kind of go 50-50 in the lane, or something like Belica, you usually go about 50-50. But when you're against Narbash, you just insta lose the lane. That's one of the strengths about Narbash, actually. So then we go to Narbash. Narbash is he's going to be higher tier just because you have so much early pressure. I'd probably put him somewhere above Feng Mao. You would definitely pick Narbash before you pick Feng Mao. The reason Narbash is so strong is because, one, if you ban Muriel, he's now the best support up. Because you're not going to pick Decker before you pick Muriel, or before you pick Narbash. It's just not going to happen. Your heal allows you to invade early game because you cannot fight into it. It's very potent. Your laning phase is very high, especially now that you don't rotate as much. Having the extra pressure in the lane makes a much bigger impact up until, first prime, where you rotate at 8 minutes. Up until that point, you're really strong. Even at that fight, you're going to be really strong. You should theoretically have pressure in lane. You're going to be a little bit ahead. You can freeze more people out of creeps because you have the extra healing, and you can sustain more in the lane, so you can end up getting a lead off of that. Regardless of whether or not you invade or not. And he's just very potent. Not as good as Muriel, because Muriel kind of outscales around the 10-minute mark, but you are very strong for the majority of the game. FaZe got buffed. They made the link a little bit further, and they made it break a little bit further away. Still not that good of a character. I don't think I would pick her in almost any game. I've seen a couple people play her, like Chukan, some people that are really good at her. but she's just kind of your phase. If your link is down, you don't do anything. You do set up easy ganks, which is good, but you kind of get bullied by most characters. You're gonna lose a lot of CS now, especially with how minions, how much damage they do. You can't really laser beam the wave. If you do, you're just gonna lose all your CS. She's kind of meh. You can pick her. She's not unpickable, but I don't know why you'd ever pick her when some of the other mages are up, other than you just want to play her. Really, she's just not. She doesn't bring all that to the table. And if somebody's playing something where they can just break the link easily, you're not really gonna do a whole lot. You are good into melee characters though, so if you're playing against something like Countess, for example, it's a very hard counter matchup for her, especially in the lane. You just bully her, you link to her, she can't break the link. If she TPs to you, you blind her, you can ult her off of you. Very good into melee characters, but you're just weak into everything else. You're going to get bullied by most maids, you're going to lose a lot of CS and just be behind. And you're really just kind of useful for a pull, which is a little bit more of like a cheese lower elo strat, but she's still alright. Rampage, probably the second best solo laner. I debate putting him in SS. I don't think you should ban him, but you should be picking him. He is... The reason you don't ban him is because there's better bans, but he is a top tier character. I can't deny that. He is just very strong. Even after the stun nerf, where it's only 1.5 seconds instead of 2, still very strong. You're still one of the best frontliners. You're one of the only solo laners that actually threatens people now. So characters like Steel don't really threaten anymore without Pendant. You still build Pendant, but it's still like it's nerfed a little bit, so you don't do as much damage. Rampage is one of the only solo laners that can still kill regardless of Pendant being nerfed. So you do apply a lot of pressure. You are good in lane. You don't really lose to anybody post level 6. You get bullied a little bit by Steel pre 6, but after you're level 6, you should just win the lane. You kind of beat everybody. Just good character. Your stun is just great. Setup tool, you can easily get picks with it. You can throw across map. You have great rotations. You're good on objectives. You're just very strong, very safe as well with your dash. They fixed it a little bit, so you can actually dash up ledges now, like into mid lane, which helps a lot when you're getting gone on in a team fight or something like that. You're trying to run away. Helps a lot. Revenant, the best ADC in the game, hands down. It should be banned or picked for first every game. This one's kind of been like a sneaky pick. Word I'm looking for. A little bit of a sleeper. I didn't think he was as good as he is, but in high-level competitive games, like scrims and stuff, the tournaments, all that kind of stuff, they only allow you to have one smite, which makes him incredibly strong, because you can just ult the enemy jungler away, and you basically guarantee objectives. You're also very strong in lane. You're the strongest laning phase of any ADC. You come online faster than any ADC, because all you need is Treasured Sword plus 2 tier 1 crit items to come online. You have more attack speed than every other ADC at level 1. You do have to reload. That's like your only negative. Even after the reload nerf, you don't really notice it too much, because you weren't even at the insta reload, which is what it was. It was 1.8 before the patch. Now it's like a 0.8 second reload. You don't really notice that because you only had that when you had Prime Guardian buff or like a couple Wind Spirits or something like that. But he's just incredibly strong in the lane, incredibly strong late game, and just comes online so fast. Very good character. Should be first picked, first banned in almost every high elo game. He's a little bit harder to play, but if you can play him, he is incredible. Sereth. Another character I thought was kind of not playable, similar to Aurora. I thought she was kind of bad. I think she's actually pretty good. Definitely better than Countess. I'd actually put Countess down in hindsight. I'd probably put Countess somewhere around here. Just because you do get bullied out early game. But Sereth is pretty okay. She's like Kalari. You can get bullied a little bit early game. Your early game's kind of weak, but once you get your ultimate, you pretty much outtrade almost any jungler in the 1v1. The problem is you kind of just die late game. You don't have any CC. You're just a worse Feng Mao. You do similar damage. You don't have an execute. You are good on objective shreds though, so you can burn Prime or something like that with another teammate. Better in jungle. Would not recommend playing her solo at all, but her jungle is pretty strong. Sevarog. Sevarog is just your basic, probably your most balanced character in the game, to be honest. He's Sevarog. You're going to scale. You're going to pick him after, maybe Steel's banned or Rampage is picked, something like that, and then you're going to pick your Sevarog. That's kind of where most solo laners go to. That's just, it's always going to be up. It's always going to be playable. You're always going to have an impact in the game. You might be a little weak in the lane, but you're always going to be good mid game. You're always going to be good late game. It takes a little bit of time to get used to stacking, but once you get used to it, very strong character. Shimby. Shimby got buffed. They buffed her a lot, actually. She is quite strong now. I would say she's somewhere in the upper tier of characters. She's very good in solo. She's very good in mid. You can still build tank because you don't really get nerfed by Pendant being nerfed. It does a little bit less damage now, and not having the mana from it does hurt, but you are still able to proc it effectively because you're a melee character, and that helps a lot in the laning phase. You can be played solo, you can be played mid. Your jungle isn't that bad anymore. It's still not good. You're still going to get invaded in the jungle because you're weak early game, but if you hit level 6, you know, level 7, level 8, maybe you get a kill on an early gank or something, you can easily snowball in the jungle. But your laning phase is not that bad. You have the healing back, so you can team fight well. You go Archon Gospel, you can literally 1v5 almost. Very strong character. Your ult did get nerfed a little bit when you don't have it fully stacked, but when you do have it fully stacked and you have all 6 bonus wolves, you do actually get more damage out of it. Still a very good character. The change to her E helps a ton. Very, very strong. Might be overrating her a little bit, maybe a little bit worse than Belica, but I think she is just good in general. I've seen her only a couple times in scrims because I haven't scrimmed a lot since the patch, but in the high elo games, I've been having a lot of success with her, and I've been seeing her succeed a lot by solo lane and mid together. Seen her played a little bit in the jungle to like moderate success, you know, 50-50 or whatever. It just kind of depends on what you're playing against and how the game goes. You are a little weak in the jungle though early game, kind of like Sevarog, where you just you're just a farm character. You want to farm and you want to farm. You don't want to be in the jungle because in the jungle you tend to fight a lot more because you're ganking and all that kind of stuff, or invading. Whereas in the lane you can kind of farm a little bit. And that's what you want to do on Shimby. You want to scale around level 11 is where you are starting to hit your peak. Level 11, because you get level 2 ult, past that point in the game, you're very, very strong, and you can kind of one-shot anybody, especially ADCs, even through Fnatic's Dessert, which not a lot of mids can do. Sparrow, probably the second best ADC. Usually, the way you play picks and bans is one team will pick, you know, Muriel, Revenant, you know, Rampage, something like this, Steel maybe, when we get you to that. And then the other team will pick, you know, Grux plus whatever, maybe Grux Narbash to just take the second support. And then whichever team is left, if Revenant is banned, you take Sparrow. You always take Sparrow. She's better than every other ADC other than Revenant by a long shot. She's just incredible out of lane. Your lane is a little weak, but it's not unplayable. You're still decent. The slow is very good setup for ganks. The fact that you kind of sit in the lane, if you get paired with a Narbash or a Muriel, you're just safe all lane. You have no real threats. Your 2 is insane. The movement speed that you get is incredible, especially with the sprint change nerfs. You can really just walk people down, especially with the snipe. Being able to snipe people and, you know, chase them at a high movement speed is just kind of disgusting. Late game, you just shred people. You just 2-tap people. Your ulti is incredible in team fights. You're great at the first prime pit. Once you get to kind of your first item and you get to that prime pit, you're very strong. You can go crit. You can go the attack speed build where you go jewelry box. Both incredibly potent on her. Just a good character. Just very good kit. Very, very strong. Definitely the second best ADC. Now we get to Steel. Steel's probably the third best character in the game. The reason Steel is not at the top, some people might disagree with this, but the wall got nerfed a little bit. But in solo lane, he's probably the strongest solo laner, but you do not threaten people. You apply CC, which allows your team to kill people, and you have one of the best engage tools in the game with your ultimate, but you do not actually threaten the backline. If a Steel goes on me as a mid laner, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get CC'd as anybody else around. If they aren't, I'm not that threatened by him. He cannot solo kill people, especially ADCs. It's very hard for him to solo people, but the wall is very impactful, and the engage and CC tools that he has is very good. His early laning phase, 1-6, is really strong. He bullies every laner except for Rampage post level 6. Steel will just have pressure in the lane. And he's just good. He's just very, very strong. Has kind of everything you need in the kit, other than the fact that he can't 1v1 in ADC late game. in order to 1v1 the ADC, you would have to have them just not walk behind your wall to hit you, something like that. But he is just very potent, very, very strong. Great wall, like it just fantastic kit. Very, very strong. Just lacking the damage potential to solo kill somebody, so with compared to somebody like Rampage at least. Which granted, not a lot of solos have a lot of potential to kill people, but you play something like Wukong solo or Feng Mao solo, you can definitely kill backliners. But Steel is just chef's kiss, fantastic character. Should be picked or banned in most games. Usually he's like the throwaway ban, so when you ban, you generally ban Muriel or Revenant. Well, like first pick will ban Steel, and then the other team will ban Muriel or Revenant, and then one team gets one, the other team gets the other team gets something like Narbash, or they get Grux, something like that. That's usually how most picks and bans go. It's like Steel gets banned, and the other team will ban Revenant, or they'll ban Muriel. The first team will pick whichever, and then the second team will pick the counters, being Grux and then something else usually in most situations. The Fae. The Fae is a top tier character. She did get nerfed a little bit with the builds being changed to more of a damage oriented build. Personally, I think she's a little bit worse than Gideon right now. I think you're just a little easier to gank. You are still super high impact in team fights, but at the same time, Gideon does the same thing. Gideon can group 5 people together. Gideon can set up for his team. Gideon's safer in the lane. They do the similar thing. Gideon has more burst. Muriel is a little worse into like Muriel. Or Muriel is worse than Muriel. The Fae is a little bit worse into characters like Muriel. If you're not one-shotting people, Narbash will just heal. You don't really have any follow-up for something like a Decker Cage or something like that. You're just you're good, but you're not overpowered. You're top tier, just a little bit worse than Gideon, in my opinion. You would pick the Fae usually, third, fourth in picks and bans. You're going to pick these 4 characters at the top for sure in almost every game, plus Grux. And then you're going to go for a Gideon or a Fae. Personally, I'm taking Gideon every time. I think Gideon just does more than the Fae. I think you're safer than the Fae. You can shove waves on the Fae, but you can't really rotate as much anymore because you'll miss farm if you do. So if you rotate and you don't get kills, you're going to be a lot worse. That was kind of her thing on the previous patch. You would shove the wave and then you'd rotate and then you'd come back and catch the next wave. You can no longer do that. If you shove the wave and then rotate, you are going to lose that wave the following wave, instead of being able to catch that at your tower line anymore. So she's kind of a little bit worse for that. And then you also don't build as tanky, so the CC that you apply is good, but you're not one-shotting somebody like a Gideon Rock or something like that. So I think she is a little worse, but she is definitely a top tier character and very much worth picking, especially in mid. Twin Blast. Probably the worst ADC in the game. There's not really ever a situation where I would pick this character over the other ADCs, unless they're all picked or taken, picked or banned. There's just no reason. You don't do anything. You have to build crit, because if you don't build crit, you're basically down to abilities. Your ultimate doesn't really do any damage. It's just used for chase. In which case, I would just rather play something like Sparrow, who has the same distance with the snipe to chase people, but you don't have the ult for it, while also having a useful ult. You don't really have good CC. You have a slow, that's okay. You have a dash. The dash range got nerfed. You're pretty easy to kill. You're pretty easy to walk down as a solo laner. Your right click crits, but it doesn't really do a ton of damage. Your auto attacks generally just do more damage anyways. Your laning phase is weak. Your late game is weak. You're just the weakest ADC, hands down. You're very little lane pressure, very weak late game, just very meh all around. I would not play Twin Blast. Probably needs a little bit of a buff, to be honest. Wraith. Playable. Not good, playable. Probably put him somewhere around Kalari. I don't want a Wraith on my team. Better than Twin Blast, better than Chimera, at least has uses. He's just, you right click people, that's what you do. I think he's better in mid than in ADC. You don't scale as well as other ADCs. No reason to really play him there unless the other ones are taken or banned. As far as support, you're not really playing him support. You don't do a whole lot. You're not going to have pressure in lane. In mid, you're going to get out cleared now. You're going to lose a lot more farm than you would on the previous patch, as well as having the base damage on the snipe nerfed, so you don't have as much early game pressure. You do hit very hard late game, but at the same time, Wraith late game is not known for being good. You are bad at team fighting. You are going to get gone on. You have no mobility. You're kind of just a meh character, more of a cheese character, kind of like FaZe or something like that, where you kind of like, you're okay, but you're not great. You can, if you have good engage, you can rewind people. That's kind of cool. You can rewind people back through portals, but for the most part, you're just kind of not that good. You don't do a whole lot. Better than anybody else at the very least. Um, just very meh character. Even without people building pendant, last patch he was kind of a little bit weaker because people built pendant. But you're not building pendant now, but they also nerfed your base damage, and you need more items to be online. So you're kind of just weak, and you're gonna get shoved. You're gonna lose farm. You're not gonna be able to get online like you want to, and even when you do, you're gonna be team fighting, and then you're just a weak team fighter. You're just gonna be weak than all the other mages. If you build ADC, you're just not gonna scale as hard. You're not gonna do as much damage. You're better off just playing something like Sparrow or Murdoch or Revenant if you're going to play ADC. Wukong, the new boy. I think Wukong is probably the worst character in the game. I don't see a situation where I would ever pick him. I think most of the high elo players kind of agree. If you pick him, you're kind of griefing the game. Like there's like grief picks like Twin Blast or like Chimera where you're kind of trolling, but at the same time they at least do something. You know, Chimera at least has a stun. Twin Blast is at least an ADC. Wukong is you actually just do nothing. You farm. You're not gonna be able to split push. People aren't gonna let you split push. You're not gonna be able to solo objectives. Everybody is at the prime pit at 8 minutes. Everybody's gonna be on spirits. People are warding. You're not gonna be able to solo objectives. You're gonna get invaded early because you can't fight. Your 1 to 6 is terrible. Once you're level 6, you can kind of farm okay. Your jungle is not good. You don't get ahead. In solo, you get a little bit of a lead maybe from your passive giving you extra gold, but you're not going to do anything with the lead. You can't team fight. You're not going to be able to split push. And it's just, you're not a good character. You don't do a lot. They need to seriously change how his kit works. They need to, you know, allow it to share cooldowns when you switch stances. Just put the stance switch on like an 8-second cooldown, and then if you stance switch, your cooldowns are reset for the new stance. Something like that would make him a lot better. And then they should also make the stun, instead of pushing back everybody, it should stun the first person and then push back any consecutive targets it hits after that. That way, if you're boxing somebody, you could stun them in your clones, and then you're in a much better position because now they're boxing you in your clones and they're stunned, and then you can follow up with your Q. The way it is now is you push them away, you stun and then you push them away. The whole design of the kit is to play around the clones. So if you are boxing somebody, you put a bunch of clones down and then you try to stun them in them, you're going to end up pushing them away. And the other problem with pushing them away is that your Q is now impossible to hit. And that's even if you can do that. Now you can say, well, you can cloud walk and then stun from the air. Well, if you go in the air on your cloud walk and then try to stun somebody, you're not out of range of auto attacks on your cloud walk. The only way to get out of range of auto attacks is to right click and then cloud walk. You have to jump and then cloud walk. Now if you jump and then cloud walk, well, now you can't stun because your cooldowns are not shared. So, you know, you're just gonna not be able to do anything. You're just kind of not a great character. You're not good in lane. You get bullied by everybody. I mean, you get bullied by Sevarog. You know what I mean? Like, if you're getting bullied by Sevarog, that's tough. Just not a good character. Definitely needs some serious buffs or changes to his kit at the very least. I would prefer changes to the kit as opposed to buffs. I think he could be really cool if they just did a couple things to tweak his kit a little bit and make him a little better, but just very meh. Very meh. Last character is Xena. Xena got nerfed. I don't really know why they nerfed her. I don't think she was particularly that strong anyways. I think she was somewhere around Sereth's level, where you could pick her if you wanted to, but she wasn't like great. You're kind of unplayable in solo now because you don't clear the wave anymore. That was kind of her thing. You could clear the wave and then, you know, rotate early. Not that rotating is even that good anymore, but it was something that you could do because your right click full cleared the wave when it was charged. Now it doesn't. Your 1 and your 2 do 100 base damage with 40% scaling. Your ult got nerfed, so you can't really one-shot anybody anymore. You're just kind of not a good character. You kind of just a knock-up bot. You dash in, you knock up, and then that's kind of all you do. You're just not good. I would not play Xena. I would avoid playing her. I've seen a couple people play her, and they're kind of like, you know, they can do. You have a couple plays you can make, but you're not a top-tier character. I don't know if I'd really play you at any point. To the point where I actually haven't even purchased Xena anymore. I was saving up to buy her because I wanted to save for Wukong. I purchased Wukong because he was only 2,000. I thought he was going to be 6. And then I actually just, instead of buying Xena, I just bought some skins because they nerfed her and I already didn't think she was that good. And most people kind of agree in the high elo. If you're playing her, you're just not doing a whole lot. You're a knockup. That's what you do. you knock people up. That's about it. But yeah, that's basically my opinion on the meta in the current state, especially in terms of like high elo play. This is where most of the characters kind of stand. You could debate Grux being like up here just because you would kind of pick him before any other jungler, but I think in terms of how good he actually is, he's more around this S tier. I think he would be more contested if there was better junglers or more junglers in the game, particularly characters that can engage, because there's not a lot of characters that can engage in the jungle right now. I think that's his biggest issue. But that's it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, or if you guys like this type of video, I can make more, something like that. If you want one more for specific lanes, or you want items, maybe I might do an item tier list, something like that in the next few days. Just let me know, and hope everybody has a good rest of their day.